Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Development with G6 Portal. So today we are going to try to create a simple system to poll for a list of questions that can be asked at an event, for example. So you might have a speech whereby you open the possibility of the listeners to participate in the event by asking their questions over the internet, and you choose the questions that have been voted higher. Okay, so that is the system that we're trying to develop today. So we go back to the J6 portal directory that we have downloaded before. So we already downloaded before this. We downloaded the application YML and also the G6 portal H2 jar. So let's start up our server. So Java G6 portal H2.jar. Okay. So we'll start our server. So in the meantime, okay, once our server has already started, now I will go to the location, right? This portal. So you can log in. Okay, we go to module. Right. So the last time we made the booking uh, module. So now today we're going to make another module. Let's call it the whole module. Okay, we made a whole module. So we have to have a few things for us to create the polling module. One is that we have to have session so that we can reuse the module again and again. We don't want for the module to only be used for just one event. We want to be able to have multiple events, and then the questions that we ask will be aggregated by the events that have happened. So for the first, once we have created the module, we need to add ourselves as a developer module. So let me make the font a bit bigger so that it's easier for you to see. Okay. Once we have made ourselves as developer, then we already able to add tracker, add widget. So let's add a tracker. Okay. So let's call this tracker for sessions. So slot will be yeah, we just going to call sessions. Okay. And then we can data store. Right. So that's all that we have. Mhm. And then we can create a session. Okay. Once we have a session, we can add a field. So create field. Let's call it just call it name. Label name. Then we can name session. Okay. So for now we will just have that one filter. So then we can click on create defaults. We will create all of the defaults for that for this particular module. Okay. So we put all the transition, all the status, the role. Okay. And then for us to start using it, we can go to field, click update DB for it to actually create the table inside our database. So once you have done that, you can click on view tracker. I will use the middle mouse button to open another tab. Okay, so now we can have a new poll session. Okay. So let's call it quiz one, for example lah. Okay, this is the new poll session. You see, we have done taking this poll session tracker. Okay, poll session. So now we want to have a list of questions. Okay, so we can go back to the module. Okay, or we're going to add another tracker. This time we're going to call it question. So all questions. Okay, we'll call it that as well. All right. So for our questions, there's a few things that we need. So we can create all of it using a multi-field. So it doesn't have to spend so many times to fit in the thing. Okay. So the first thing is, of course, we need the question itself. Question. Question. Okay, field type for text area. And click the add button to add a new field without submitting anything yet. We can call this session ID. Session. And this one we use belongs to. Okay. So this one actually belongs to the other tracker, the session tracker. Okay. And then another one that we would like to have is, for example, for people to be able to vote which question they want answered. So we have another one, we call it vote. Okay. So the vote will be an integer. Right? Integer. Okay. Another field that we might want to track is, for example, if the question is already answered, we don't want it to be listed anymore. Okay. So maybe we can have it call it active. Okay. Active or not active. Right. So this one we can use a chat box. So the boolean whether it's active or not. Okay. So I think that should be it. So let's click on create. We create all 4 fields. Okay. Then click on update DB for it to be created inside the database. And then for the rest of the rows and status and television, you can click on create default to create the transition. But one thing that I would like to point out that the create default sometimes it doesn't align the field based on how we like it. Like for example, for this one, maybe you would like for it to have the questions go first, and then for question. Actually, never mind. You just do the create default. Okay. So as you can see, when you create default, the active vote, question ID, and question, right? And the condition here, active vote, question ID, and question. Okay. So you click on view tracker, you can add new question, or active or not active, and then vote. Okay. And then the section here is supposed to be a drop down. but we didn't actually specify which uh, tracker did the belongs to is linked to. Okay, so we can actually specify that here. The section ID, go to edit, right? So for field options is where we specify which tracker this particular field belongs to. We call it role, okay? So column, and then the module, sorry, all is the module, okay? And then the slug of the session, slug of the tracker, which is session, okay? And then what does the drop down display? So we call it name, field, okay? So we update this. We go back to the form. There you go. We have a drop down to one. So you can have, for example, we have another one here, quiz two, for example. Okay. So if we click new question and drop down, you have quiz one and quiz two, right? You can have how many work, is active, how do you say hello, for example. Okay. Right. So this is example of how we create a tracker and it has another dependency. So the session, this is because it's actually belongs to this other tracker. So it automatically becomes a link to the other tracker. So you can actually click here and it will show the other tracker. Okay, we'll go to the other tracker. So and when you view the other tracker, right over here, it's just the name, the field is name. So we can actually display the questions that we have done. So for example, if we go back to our whole session, we can create a new field. We can call it questions. Okay, the field type, we say has many, and then the field option will point to the tracker that we want to load from. So we pull questions, and then what we want to display automatically. So we want to display the question. Okay. So if we add that, then automatically when you view a question, okay, I have to add the filter. We go back to the detail of the group. We can actually add it to places, either in the footer or over here. I'm going to edit and the status. So over here, put on the ID for the new filter. Okay, so display field, what field we want to display? We want to display first the name of the session and then the questions for that session. Okay, once we have done that, and we view the session, then we will have list of session with the questions. Okay, all right. So that is how you link together two trackers. Now, what we want is that the user is able to add a new question while the session is going on. And we don't want the user to actually have to log in. Okay, we want to create another page that doesn't require for the user to log in to be able to display the form and the questions that have been asked. Okay, we go back. We want to go back to the module, the whole module, right? So we can ask, we can create another page. Put on that page. So over here we might call it custom pool. Custom pool. So you use slug. So to show to show how you're going to reach the page. Okay, we're gonna call it publish. We're gonna give it require login. So this page is able to be accessed even though the user is not currently logged in. Right? So we can have we click here. I put which one question. Right? So we can save it. Okay, so to save it, then you can actually view the page. You click on view, you can see it. And if you use uh, incognito, incognito mode, you can actually view the page. Go to host 1990, and then you can view all question. So you open the page. So even though you are not logged in, you are able to view the page. Okay. So now what we want to do is that we want to display the form for the user to submit. Okay. Now, what we want is to make sure that the user actually select a session. So for example, the question, maybe you can do question /1. So you will go to question with the ID 1. Okay, question /2, we go to question with ID 2, for example. So we want the user to select which session they want to go to if they come to this page without selecting a session. Okay, so how do we do that? We go back to our page now. Okay, we edit the page. Okay, so once we are here editing the page consists of two contents. One is the content part, and another one is the pre-process part. Okay, so with the pre-process, we can actually do some scripting in Grails with Groovy. Okay, do some scripting with Groovy to load all the data that is necessary so that we can just display it inside our content, right? So that's what we're going to do. So in pre-process, what we're going to do here is that we are going to check whether the user actually have a first argument. Okay, first argument in the URL. For example, now question /1. /1 would be the first argument, right? So inside the G6 portal framework, the first argument is going to be put into arg1, the params arg1. Okay, so that is what we're going to test. So we're going to test here if params arg1. Okay, if params arg1, that means if it's not null lah, maybe the arg1 is, then you can load the question. I'm sorry, the session. Right. So let's first define a session here. Okay, to session null. Okay, and then over here we say to session equal to this water tracker. Okay, and now we're going to load data from that particular tracker. Okay, so one is the first row. Okay, from which module, which is the whole module, and what's the slug? The slug is session. Okay, and then how are we going to find the uh, the data, we're going to load based on the ID. Okay, so the ID ini params one. I think I got it wrong. So because first row will actually create a query. Yeah, data. Okay, let's check back our source code. Oh, we check our source code on GitHub. Okay, for the domain, yeah. So first row is if you have a query, okay, you can create a raw query. Oh, actually, why would I have to because we have only one? Oh, okay. We want to return the first one. Yeah, because we're going to return only the first one. Okay, so yes, it's correct. First row. So back for page check now. So first row, whole session. Okay. So that's no problem. So the first row is actually if we already load the tracker, then we can actually use the first row. But we haven't loaded the tracker, right? We want to use directly. So if you want to use directly, you can use the get data. Get data will load based on basically the ID. Okay, basically the ID. So you get data. Okay, this should work. Over here, we return new session, new session. Right. What's happening here is that you first define a queue session will be null, right? And then you check if the parents arg1 actually exists. If it exists, then try to load the queue session questions session from the tracker poll session with the argument one as the parameter. This one will automatically be the ID of the session, right? So after that, you return queue session. So this one you can actually access over here. This is the question. So for example, over here, you can use the Groovy, the Grail tag gif. Gif is for you to test whether something is true or not within the template. Okay, test, enter. So the thing that is being returned here is going to be accessed in the template using the parameter, the variable pp. Okay, so pp for pre-process, right? So if pp queue session, okay, we'll use queue session here. So if pp queue session, so if queue session is loaded, then we will display the name of the session, right? Queue session. Right? Else, if there is no session, session selected yet, then we will give them a choice. Which selection, which session do they actually want? Okay. So how do we give the choice? We need to load all the sessions, right? So the way to load all the sessions, we can do it here. For example, we can have another parameter here. All sessions. Okay. So you can actually for you to save on processing so that user doesn't load all of it without it being necessary. So we use the else here. So if parameter 1 is given, then you don't need to load all of the session. But if it's not given, then we can load all of the sessions. So we say all sessions equals to g6 portal dot rows. Okay, if I'm mistaken, that's how you do it. And then we can add here all sessions. Okay. Over here, we can test if pp or session. Make sure we actually have information. And we're going to look over all of the sessions in each into our sessions, and we're going to put into the variable new session. Okay, and then we're going to create a link for each one of it. So let's have a consulted link here. The link, I'm going to say href to view or questions, and then I'm going to put here the queue session ID. Okay, and then we're going to put here a queue session name. Right, so you should create a link of the queue session name, right? So if we go back to our incognito browser just now, right? So we remove this. Oh, okay. So now that's an error. So since it's not displaying anything, so that means that's an error. Okay, let's see what's the error. We go to our over here. It says, oh, okay. I think the source code auto tracker rows is an object. Here we go. So this is actually the proper way. Load rows and load data. Yep. Yep. Rows is actually an object of the portal tracker. Since we didn't load any portal tracker yet, we're using a static method. So we should actually be using load rows. Okay. And we can actually load data. We can actually use the load data. Go back over here. Get data. You can actually use the load data. Load data. And then over here, we can set the what we want to compare is the ID. Okay, so that's how we use the Q params load data. Over here, you can use the load rows. So you load all of the rows. Okay. Work. There you go. You have two links. One go to question 1, one go to question 2. So you click question 2. So you have a H2 for question 2. So this is how you know that you're already on the correct page with question 2 session. Right? Okay. So once that is done, then the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to let the user fill in a question and then submit the question, right? So after we have already displayed the so inside here, if a session is already made, already selected, and this is the place where we want to put in the form and all of the listing of questions and things like that. We don't want to put it under here, whereby the user have to select which session they want to view. Okay, so in here, we click on the HTML form. Okay, so we might call the label question and might area question. Okay, we might have a submit button. For example, right? So if we were to do this, so you have your question and you can ask. Okay, so this form, it has to be submitted somewhere, right? It has to be submitted somewhere. So in Q6 portal, G6 portal, sorry, in G6 portal, you can create another page where that page will accept all of the answers that is being sent here, right? So let us create another page. Go back to the list of module. Okay, I'm going to add another page. Okay, so this other page, we call it submit question. Right? So module 4 is published, doesn't require login. Okay, so one thing about this page is that we don't actually want to display HTML directly. We don't want it to display the default page. Like for the example, this one is all of the login and everything. We don't want that. We want just the questions that has been asked to be submitted. Okay. So what we can do is that we make this page runnable. Okay. So when it's runnable, that means when this page is loaded, this content will be run as a Groovy script rather than HTML that is going to be submitted. And then we can specify render, we can render HTML. So what this does is that after it runs the script and it wants to submit the results, if we put it so that you render HTML, then it will send the proper heading and everything that's required for handling of HTML sometime. Okay, so I just want to show you how we test this. So for example, over here and do print line. Okay, I want to see what is the params that has been sent to this page. Let's save. Then once we have saved this, edit. So it's easy later we can just edit this page. So this page where we have the question form, we want the form to submit to this particular submit question page. Okay. Now, one thing that we want to do is that when the user submit this, I don't want the user to go to another page and then they have to go back to this page. I want it all to happen on the single page. So something like a single page application lah. So they should ask the question. It should be submitted via Ajax to the back end and then run the question is saved into the database, and then the list of questions should be displayed down. So let's see. In G6 portal, we have already included inside the framework HTML. Okay, for those who don't know HTML, how we can use okay, HTML is how you can use Ajax very easily, right? You can use Ajax very easily. Like for example, the example we give here, for example, click to update. So if you were to do a click, you just say hx target or okay, target is where what you will change with the result. Okay, hx put is if you were to submit something using a put. Okay, you can either use hx put or hx get or hx post. Okay, we're going to use hx post so that will be easy, right? So what we're going to use here is hx post. Hx post. Where are we going to post to? We're going to post to, and we're going to call it run because the page is runnable. Oh, okay, and then the slug is submit question. Submit question. Okay, so when the post is submitted, we'll go to this page. Okay, go to run. Poll is the module. Submit question is the slug of the page. Okay, so it should go here and it should print line the param. So we go back to our business now. Okay, we say try. We click on F. You should have gone to the back end, and you'll be able to see in over here. Okay. You go back to the back end. It did. Okay, sorry, just now I guess we didn't refresh. Yeah. I guess we didn't refresh just now. So it sent the post to the back end. Now at the back end should be the params. The question we did just now was GDD. You have the controller, you have the module, you have the action, and the slug. Question. Okay. So these are the parameters that have been sent. Now, as you can see, we do not send the session ID. So we need to send the session ID. So let's go back to our form. We can send the session ID by having a hidden field. Okay, so input type hidden. Okay, and the name we'll call it session ID, and the value we put the value of params part1. Okay, so this one, if we refresh this page now, we will inspect the page. You can see that the input is already there. Hidden session ID value, right? So let's try it out. Question. Click on S, so we will submit through the AJAX. So we go back over here. You have the session ID. Okay. So now we want to save this. We want to save the session ID. We want to save the question. All right. The way we do that is over here. We can save by doing G6 portal tracker data. Okay, save data. To save data, the method save data will be able to save the data of the particular tracker lah. But first we need to create the object. So let's call it diff. We just call the object question, right? So the data is question and question. Okay, for the particular object, the question, another question, and the session ID is the params session ID. Okay, and then just now we created so that there's amount of vote, right? So let's give a default of 1. Okay, so this is the how you create an object that's going to be saved into our portal tracker. Okay, so we can save it now. G6 portal tracker save data. Okay, inside our poll module, inside our question, the slug is question. Okay, and the object that's going to be saved is question. Okay, so we already created an array over here. All of the information we will save using save data. Okay, so if I save this, and if we were to go to the list of questions, the list of questions. Okay, so as you can see, the list of questions right now is just okay. So and we also have the active, whether the question is active or not. Okay. Then we can also submit so that the question become active. Okay, active 1. Right, we save this. Okay, so the quest. Okay, list of questions now. So you have active vote session question, right? So let's try our form. As okay, so it returns this, but I will show you how to later we can change this. Okay, so over here we refresh, we have already saved that information just now. Okay, right. So a few things they want to change. One is that over here, like I mentioned, it shouldn't disappear. The form shouldn't disappear. It should actually be added to the list of questions under the form. So how are we going to do that? We're going to have another under the form. We have another list here. Okay, unsorted list. we give the ID question list. And then for the form, we set the target hx target question list. So any results we get, we won't replace this form. We will replace this question list. Okay. So we're going to try it now. So replace our question list that's down here. Right. So we want to display a proper list lah. Okay. So the way we want to display a proper list over here. Okay. So this one we already save the data. Once we already save, we want to reload all of the questions. So that all of the questions is the one that's going to display. So how do we do that? Display or define all question. We're going to load everything. Load rows of all questions. Okay. And then this one we're going to loop over every row. So we're going to define something that we're going to return. Okay. We're going to return user list. This. Okay. Next question, that's not right. Okay. And then we're going to look over all the questions, right? All questions, the each question. Okay. We're going to display the questions. Go to that class. We're going to add the question that we currently look over. Okay. So this system. Once that is done, we close the unsorted list tag, and then we return the product. Okay, so this is a proper HTML that's being written by our page. So if we try it then now, okay, so it returns all of the questions that we already asked. Okay, so now it already returned all the questions that we asked. Okay, so now what we want is that we want to be able to vote for the question, so that the idea is that the questions that has the highest vote will be at the top. Okay, question with the highest vote will be at the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another page. Okay, I'm going to refresh this. Right, we need to create another page, and this page is for voting. Okay, it's published. Don't require login. This one is also runnable. Okay, and also renders HTML. Right. So what we want is that the user is able to submit the question ID. So from the question ID, we're going to add the voting count for the particular question ID. So we're going to test if parents. So first we've got to make sure that they actually give the ID lah, right? If the parents one is given, then let's load the question. Load data, right? So the module code, the checker question, and what we're going to load is the ID from one. Okay, so we check if the question is not null, then we're going to add the amount of vote question already have. So question vote plus first one. So we add vote. Now, once we already added the vote, we need to save back the data, right? So we need to save back the data. So basic portal dot portal save data for question. I'm going to save back the question. Okay, so we're going to save back the question. So once that is done, what we're going to do is that we're going to load all of the question that is with regards to that current session. Okay, so the current session we're going to get from the question object. So we have the session ID from the question object. So that's where we're going to get the current session. So we're going to load all the questions. All questions is dot load rows. Okay, we're going to load from all question. Okay, now the thing is, we're going to load all of the rows, so there is no filtering that's going to be done. So the parameter for the filtering is null, but we want to actually sort by vote. So the column vote, we want it descending. So the highest will be at the top, and then after that, followed by all the smaller ones. Okay. So that is what going to happen. And then we're going to return back all of the questions. Okay. So we're going to define return okay, you have to look over all of the questions again. For each question, return this item question. Okay, so that's if we are given a ID, right? So let's save this, and we're going to test this. Okay, we're going to test it. So how we're going to test this? You guys can click on the run here. Then on the middle button, click on the run to open a tab. So over here, it goes to run for vote, but because we didn't specify arg1, so it didn't load anything. So you can see over here the list of questions, right? We have all of these questions, but the vote is all still the same. So let's say we want to vote for hello there here. So the ID is 2, right? So over here, vote /2. Okay. So now we have sent the arg1 for the question, which is the ID of the question, which we will load question 2. It should increase the amount of vote for question 2. Okay. So we need to refresh this. Something happened. So there was an error. Okay. Let's see whether I see the error in our list of errors here. No. If you cannot see that, then you got to go back to the terminal. So we go back to the terminal. Let's see what is the error. What is the error? No, that's not error. Let's see whether it will load anything here. Load question now. Honestly. What's the parent set? Mm-hmm. Let's go. Let's go. Right. It should be question. Oh my god. Right. The our slug is actually questions. Okay? It's not question. That's one of the things that you have to be careful with. Right? So slug is actually question, not question. Okay? Questions, not just questions. Right? So let's try it. Alright, there you go. Okay, so you're able to load. And if you look back at the list of questions, let's go to add this. Hold on. Load the question. Okay. See what we say. What? Oh, that's what I say. Oh my god. Why do I load rows? No, that's correct. Sorry. Same. You forget the S. Alright. So it wasn't saving. That's the reason. Right, so let's vote again. There you go. We'll take a fresh. You can see vote for question 2 has been increased. So be careful guys with the slug. Make sure that the slug is actually exists. Okay? So we need to create a button for this URL. Okay, so I want to display the page. Okay, first let's load all of the questions that's already for that session. So over here we want to load all the questions. Questions. Load rows. Make sure it's proper. Juga apa namanya slug, and then I'm going to compare the session ID to the params. Okay, so we want to load all of the questions that is with the session ID of parent art1, and we want to actually sort it by the vote. So vote descending. Okay, so once we have that, we can return it to the questions. Okay, and then up here, okay. for the questions here, we look over each question, each in EP questions, we put into the variable question. We want to display the list item of question. In the object question, display the the value of question inside the object question. Okay, so let's go back to our viewer. Right, we display questions 2, enter. So it already shows there. So hello there, hello and remark. Okay, and hello there, hello and remark. If we go back to our list of questions, you can see these are the 3 two questions that we have, and it is sorted by the vote. So hello there is first because it's higher, right? So we want to have another button here that the user can click and do the vote. Okay, so let us edit our page so that we have the button there. Which is the plus sign. Okay, so this one we kill a hatch. You can use the hx post or hx get, but I think get is enough because we're not submitting any data. We just want to go to the URL. What URL? Role, vote, and then the question ID. Okay, and then with this one, you want to target the result. You want to target the question list. So when they press the button, they should replace the whole question list. Okay, so back to over here, we have your button here. So we want to vote, for example, for remark. Okay, so you click here. Oh, wrong. That's wrong. Target error. Oh, target error. Because we didn't specify the ID. Okay. Right. So you click here. There you go. Okay. So what happened here is that it load all of the questions. Including the question that's from question 1. So we go back to the vote page. Right? Here we load rows. We didn't filter by just now we didn't filter by the question. Session, sorry. So we can filter by the session here. Session has to be the same session as the question session ID. Okay. So now the user was to reload this page. Yeah. So you click hello. Okay, so now what happened is that all 3 is the vote is 222, right? So if you click hello again, it should go all the way to the top. There's something wrong. Error code 500. What happened? Oh, okay. something happened here. Oh, okay, here you go. I forgot to didn't close this properly. Okay, the array for the query parameter we didn't close properly. Okay, let's reload this. Now, if we could add the hello, there you go. Right? So hello goes up. Right. Now what happened is that the result of this is from our vote. Okay. Just now we already edited the question pool so that it has this. Okay. Now so we need to do the same for our vote. Okay. We need to add our vote. We do add the button. Just copy it. Okay. Right. Okay. 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 So we add the button inside in front of our yes that we return by the voting page. Okay, so it's essentially the same thing, separate except for we add the button tag. Let's try again. Okay, so remark we vote for remark to go up, remark goes up. Okay, hello there, we can vote for hello there to go up, hello there go up. Right, so we can have people voting, and then we can add another one here. It's another question. Okay, we ask. There you go. It goes down all the way down here. But as you can see, it doesn't have the plus button when we submit question. So we need to add that too. So we have our submit question list, right? You just copy from here. Right? So it's using QQ also, so no need to change that. Right? So we just copy that. So now I have this another question. Try again. There you go. But it also looked from the question one. You see, it looked from the question one. So we didn't filter. So we load rows, all of the questions. So we want to filter by session ID. The session ID based on the question session ID. Right? And also we want to order by vote descending. Right? So alright, so it goes all the way down there. So as you can see, that is how you're able to use HTMX directly inside G6 portal. So it's quite convenient. Now, we want to change a few things. One is that when the user click S button, we want to clear the question so that they wouldn't click again and again and the same question will be sent. We want to clear the question, right? So how do we do that? Okay, the way to do that is in our expose here, right? You have the target, and then if you go to look at the at the HTMX reference, okay, you can see example of how to do something once something has happened. Okay, like what I mean by that is, for example, if hold on, okay, so if we were to go to the HTMX page, you can click on reference, and then it has here HX on. Okay, so HX on is what we will do when things happen in HTML. So, so you have your before request and after request. So we want to have an after request, whereby after the request we will clear the page, the box, right? So we go back to our question just now. We have HX post, and then we have HX target. Then we'll have HX on. Okay, so it's here HX on after request equals to, and then what is the JavaScript? Okay, HX on after request equals to. So we want to clear the text area. Okay. Okay. So what we want to do is that we first give a ID for our text area so that we can refer it in our JavaScript. Okay. So we want to do a get element by ID. So expression. Then we set the value equals to empty. So that's basically what we're going to try to do. So after the request, we're just going to empty the text area. Let's see whether that works. First, we will fetch this. Allow that again. Pass. Oh, then oh, sorry, it's document. Document, get element ID. Okay, and it becomes empty. Right, it becomes empty, and the question is down here. Right. Okay, that question up here. Okay, So that's great and all. But what happens is that the question goes all the way down. So you don't know if you're just typing up here and you don't scroll all the way down to see your question, you don't know the question has been added. So the best thing is that if the question is added, then we want the question to be the highest question on the page, right? So any question that has just been added, essentially it has to have the highest vote. That will be the latest question that's being displayed. All right? So let's try that. Let's try when you submit for the question. Okay, when you submit for the question, so rather than the vote is 1, default we put here vote 1. You first want to get what is the highest vote available for that current session. What is the highest voted question for that current session? So let's do a define highest vote equals to, we're going to do this title. Okay, so this one is where we're going to use the raw first row just now. Raw first row. Okay, so we're going to select the vote, highest vote. Select max vote from, okay, what is the current tracker table? The current tracker table, the default one for the G6 portal is track underscore the module, which is code underscore slug, which is questions, underscore data. So that is the current default G6 portal. You can specify other data table if you want, but the default is that. So we want to select max vote from track poll questions data, but we want to specify where session ID equals to session ID. We want to set the parameter session ID around. Okay, so we do it this way so that we make sure that you cannot do SQL injection with the params lah. Okay, so we select the max vote. So the first row, max vote as max vote. Okay, so if the data you get inside the highest vote, so we can do it this way. We can put it highest vote, max vote, and then we plus 1. Okay, so we already have the maximum vote here. Then we add plus 1 so that we get even higher vote for the current saved data, saved question. Okay, so we need to try to reload this. So it should come up at the very top. There you go. They come out at the very top. Okay, so that is how you create a module for question polling using G6 portal. Okay, so let us clean up a bit, whereby like this one, this you have this you know, unseemly list. Yeah, you can you can actually make it into a list group with list group item, and then it should work out better. So let's just change this. And you got to change all the other pages too. Okay, so it should look a bit nicer. There you go. Much more nicer. As it goes to the very top, and the other users can vote on the question going up and up and up. All right, just one more thing for us, which is for the users, this is fine, but for the administrator, okay, the administrator, they might, for example, the first question is already being asked, so we don't want to display anymore, right? So we want to just be able to deactivate that question, so it won't come up anymore, right? Okay, so first, we already have ability to change whether the question is enabled or disabled, right? You have your, your list of questions here. You can actually change whether it is an edit, and you can switch off the active or not active. This one, to update, we switch off, so active become false. And then all our query, we have to make sure that we query questions that is active. So sessions, we filter by session, and also we filter by active. Okay, same for all the other pages. We filter by session. We also filter by active. We filter by session. We also filter by active. Okay. So just now we disable one of the try this again, right? Which question is it? Try again. One of the try again. So one of the try again. Okay, this one is the top one. So since we already filter by active, if we refresh this shouldn't be here. Refresh, yep, gone. So it wouldn't show up. Okay. So that's another question, right? So for example, this is top question. We're going to disable that. Okay, so this top question, disable that. So we to refresh, it's gone. Okay. So, but this one, it is quite unwieldy for the administrator. Okay, so we want to make it a bit more easier to wield. The one thing you can do is that you can add the session filter. So we can go back to the whole questions, we can add here. We have a list of search fields and filter fields. So you want to filter by the session ID. Okay. Sometimes you might want to search the question by the question, for example. Okay. And filter fields, maybe we want to also filter by whether it's active or not active. Right? So if we updated that, then when the user view the question, when the administrator view the question, they're able to filter by session, and then they're able to filter by whether, oh, okay, okay. This one I got to check back. There's an error for the active, not active. So there's an active, not active, not okay. Right. But anyway, what I wanted to do is to show you guys how for the view of the question now. Okay, the view of the question, we want to make it so that since you are administrator, this list of questions, rather than just showing the list of questions, you'll have a button here that will be able to disable that question, right? So how do you do that? The first thing that you need to do is you'll need to create another page that will be able to do that. So the page, like for example, we have our vote page just now. We're going to add another page for disabling the question. Okay. Right. So module 4 is published. Okay. For this particular one, we want the user to require login. We don't want any Tom, Dick, and Harry just suddenly disable whatever question they want. Okay. Want to make sure that they are able to log in. Okay. So once they are able to log in, and we want it to be same runnable. Okay. So same as like for example our vote. And just copy this. Okay. The same. We're going to use the argument one. We're going to load the question. Okay. And then we're going to change the active to 0. And then we save the question. And then we will reload back the list of questions. Okay. So basically, that is what we're going to do. So if we were to go over here, right? We have to go over here. Like for example, this one. Question. Question. Sorry. This one, question 2. All right. Question 2, we want to disable the question 2. So we can go to the page, the run page, disable /2. Okay. So you should have changed the 2 that now from active to not active anymore. Right? So we can now we want to do, we want to create a button over here just for the administrator. Somebody who log in as an administrator, they will to view that button. So the way to do this is we need to edit the main page first. Okay. So after the question, we'll add another button, disable. Big X for disabling. Okay. And the thing is, we don't want everybody to see this. For example, right now, it was to save this. This is a normal user. They can also see the button. We don't want them to see the button. Only the administrator should be able to see the button. Okay. So we're going to do another test here. G, here, test. Okay. So you test whether the current use the value current user actually have a value. So if the user is currently logged in, then you will display the button. There you go. Button is on. So normal user that came here, they shouldn't be able to see the button, but the administrator they should be able to see the button. And they're able to disable the button. So this is better question, we can disable this question. There you go. Okay. After disabling the render HTML. There you go. Okay. So that is in the main page. But as you can see, in the other pages, when you reload the listing, you also have to have the same logic. Okay. So just now we click it here. If current user is already it's loaded, only then you will see the tag. You can put over here. Okay. If user add the button. Okay, when let's submit the question or when they do this, let's submit the question when they vote. And when they disable. So for normal user, add normal question. Okay, but for the administrator, I can disable this question and be gone. Okay, now that's great and all, but there's a big problem whereby this is already gone from the administrator view, but from the normal user view, it's still there, right? Because the normal user view is not updated uh, when the administrator view is updated. And this was the same with all, if you have multiple users at the same time, then everybody else asks the question, the user will not be able to see the question has already been added. We need to add a timer. We need to add a timer that we will to display the question again and again. So let us add another, we're going to add another page. Okay, that is basically going to be a list of questions, right? Okay. It's published, it doesn't require login. It's runnable and it will return HTML. So what we want to do is we want to use submit question page. Just copy here and paste here. The only difference is you don't need to submit question, so you can just uh, delete all the parts where you save the question. Okay. So the parents should be in Art1. So Art1 should have the list of it should have the session ID. Okay, so session ID should be in Art1. Okay, this page just load the question only. So question list, loads question. So now in our questions page, okay. So in our questions page, we want to be able to update okay. So if on the HTMX side, we can actually have a timing. So use hx figure for the timing. Timing example here. Never mind. Okay, sorry. So we can actually have a hx trigger whereby the trigger is based on the timer. Okay, here we go. HS get, HS figure every 1 second, for example. So that's how you use polling. So we can do that for the page. So our list of questions here. See this here. So we can have a target equals to run list, list, and then of course the current current one and check trigger every 1 second, every, let's say, 2 seconds. Okay, so every 2 seconds it should replace, sorry, this one it should get, and the target is itself lah. Okay, so we go back to the user, right? So it should be every 2 seconds we refresh this page, not this page, this is questions. So that's, for example, we disable this another try. So we can go as the, so I'm going to do this. So as you see, on this side is the normal user that's not logged in, and on the right side we'll put the administrator, right? So the administrator, what's this person? Okay. So the administrator, we can, for example, we disable another try in it. Disable this. After a second, it disappears from the user listing. Next one, disappears from the user listing. Right. So that works. But what happens is that if you ask the question, ask question, okay, so the miscellaneous question is here, right? For the administrator, not loaded. Oh yeah, because I didn't reload this one. I forgot to reload it. Okay, sorry. So now it should be loading every 2 seconds. So for example, this one. Okay, so it's added to the administrator page. Okay. But this one, once it has already loaded, okay, this one already loaded. If we were to delete this, for example, disable it. Good. That is what? Oh, it works. It works. All right. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Just disappears. All right. So that is how you develop a module for poll questions. Okay. Using the G6 portal. Very easy. All right. Thank you guys.